When you sit back and take a look about the amount of share buyback, because not only are they borrowing less money, they're fiscally better off than they were 20 years ago. ESG investing has done the United States oil and gas industry a favor by teaching them how to actually be better self governing and providing money back. I would rather want to invest in oil and gas companies in the United States. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Energy News Beat podcast. My name's Stuart Turley, President and CEO of the Sandstone Group. It is just way too much fun here on May 1st on the Energy News Beat Daily Standup. This is a lot of stories we got coming around the corner here. U.S. LNG will be the largest export product, says Secretary Chris Wright in the Trump administration's cabinet meeting. Pretty important points coming out of that one. U.S. oil companies spend less on interest over the last decade despite higher rates. Let's go to Japan. MOL's LNG fleet continues to expand. And if you can see a thread going on here, India's HPCL and Adnoc ink an LNG supply deal. And then the last story here, BP to supply feed gas to Woodside, Louisiana LNG. All of these are very huge stories and sprinkled in there with a little bit of nuclear, but buckle up. Let's go to the first story. This story is from the Crude Truth Substack. I recommend following it over there. Go to the crudetruth.com and check out everything over there as well. I just want to give them a shout out. Let's take a look at U.S. LNG will be the United States' largest export product, Secretary Chris Wright. But buried in this article is Poland's buying a nuclear plant from the United States, and Secretary Chris Wright was there during the signing celebratory mission. But I want to give Art Ray Trevino a shout out here for this article, because when President Trump is out there saying, drill, baby, drill, and all of the great oil and gas exploration companies in the United States have been giving money back to their investors while remaining fiscally responsible. I think that the regulatory things talked about in this video from Chris Wright are spot on. And I think Ray Trevino is spot on from the standpoint that the United States drilling cannot be supported at $60 oil. We really need that $70 oil or higher. We can make money, but it's how you plan your wells out and how you define them out. Just not every piece of well or every land is going to be used at $80 oil and the well efficiencies, whether or not they can be used. But let's go to Secretary Wright in this article that Ray put out. Oil, gasoline, and diesel prices have been the lowest in years, saving American consumers. Enabling more affordable and abundant energy is critical for emerging industries like AI to survive. Exporting nuclear reactor to Poland is extremely huge. LNG has become the second largest U.S. export and will soon be the largest. Here's my warning that's not in this article from the Crude Truth. President Trump, you have got to get our shipbuilding in line. I know it's going to take time, but we're going to have to buy tankers and flag them just to get around the Jones Act. And we got to get the rhinos up off their carcasses so that we can get the Jones Act killed. It is going to be a big deal to get that thing done. And in here, the Secretary Wright has just more fantastic points in there. The return of common sense has been welcomed across the country and the world, and this is exemplified by Secretary Wright in Poland during the signing of two companies being able to supply the nuclear power plant to Poland. Outstanding meeting and well done, Secretary Wright, President Trump, and Ray Trevino. Let's go to the next story here. U.S. oil companies spent less on interest over the last decade despite higher interest rates. There's a lot to this story and unpacking it from the EIA, but I added in a bunch of things in here from a couple different sources. And when you sit back and take a look about the amount of share buyback, because not only are they borrowing less money, they're fiscally better off than they were 20 years ago. ESG investing has done the United States oil and gas industry a favor by teaching them how to actually be better self-governing and providing money back. I would rather want to invest in oil and gas companies in the United States than I would in wind, solar, or other renewable energy that's out there. Let's go through the 2024 to 2025 trends. BP announced $175 billion buyback for Q1, targeting $3.5 billion for the first half and $14 billion by the end of 2025. Northern Oil and Gas increased its buyback program by $100 million, and analysts suggest in April of 2025, like majors like Chevron, BP might trim their buybacks back due to a 12% price decline. And I think that that's, again, smart. And I think it's temporary because we need over $4 trillion worth of money. And I'm almost sounding like Sean Hannity when I keep harping on about 2 or 3 bullet points. But that bullet point is very, very important. And when you want to take a look at conservatively in 2024, 30 to 40 billion, factoring in the BP's $14 billion plan and Northern Oil. But in 2022, it was 50 to 60 billion dollar buyback. So you got to look, the numbers are all here listed in here. Now that's showing fiscal responsibility on the numbers that I added into the quarterly RET information from the EIA in their article, and it's because they are better financial modeling handlers and watching everything better than they had been 20 years ago. So when you take a look, they also had relatively high prices in oil. So pretty good article there. Let's go to MOL's LNG fleet continues to expand. Why is it important to note that the Japanese shipping firm is increasing the number of tankers and has about 30 new tankers on order? 30 new LNG tankers for Japan. In Japan, 2023, Japan imported approximately 666.2 million metric tons, about 90.4 billion cubic meters of liquefied natural gas, making an 8.1 decrease from 7.199 million metric tons in 2022. This was the lowest import volume since 29, driven by nuclear power restarts and increased renewable energy use. However, that does not diminish the fact that they still have 30 LNG tankers on order. Where did they get those? Australia, 43% of import value, approximately 28.4 million. Russia, about 6.1 million. United States, 5.5 million metric tons. Papua New Guinea, about 2.6 billion in import value, about 4.2 million metric tons. And when you consider that the Japanese shipping firm is really looking at this is an important point for President Trump, Secretary Wright, and the Department of the Interior, Secretary Burgum. We need the shipyards rolling yesterday. We need the Jones Act just totally shut down. It is an old treaty law that is no longer needed at this particular point. But we have got to get them going. Otherwise, we will not be able to guarantee shipments of our great LNG exports. And as Secretary Wright said, this is going to be the #1 export for the United States in trying to offset President Trump's trade imbalances. This is a critical holding point that could stop the whole thing right there. So either we buy the ships in the temporary run, or we've got to really put afterburners on and start building ships like we were building in World War II. India, HPCL and Adnoc Inc. and LNG deal. This is very big because in the oil and gas markets, India is critical to global trade and market stability. And I think, and I'm going to go out on a limb, and I think we are close to seeing India being one of the first, if not the first, one of the first trading partners with things outlined in tariff things. We take a look at the President Trump's tariff. He is on the right track. I think the market is just being a little bit slow, but he is on the right track. And we take a look at India. If India maintains their growth pattern and China can recover somewhat, we will see a demand going across, remaining in the growth pattern in the world for natural gas, LNG, and oil. So this is critical. The sources of LNG from in India, Qatar is 48.6, UAE is 18, United States is 11%, Oman 5%, Australia 2, Angola 2, France is 2, Nigeria 1.9. So when we take a look at this article in there, according to the HPCL, the LNG terminal has been set up as an investment of 47.5 billion Indian rupees at the Chara port in Gir Somath district in Gurhat. The LNG terminal is a 1.2 kilometer jetty capable of receiving characters of 80,000 CBM to 6,000 CBM and two LNG storage tanks with capacity of 200,000 CBM. This is important. And the more that we can see this, LNG is here to stay for quite a while. Important article on that. Let's take a look at this last article here. And as we talk about that, you can see on our podcast listeners, I've got my favorite hat on, Reese Energy Consulting. And if you go to Reese Energy Consulting, they're the sponsor of the Daily Energy Show. I'm going to be visiting with Steve Reese and Ingram Carr here soon again on another podcast. Looking forward to spending some more time there. He is definitely one of the key leaders in the oil and gas industry, especially in the natural gas. He can help you get your molecules from anywhere in the Permian to Haynesville or out to the market. And if you want it to even go into Germany and beyond, he can do it. If you have a data center and you want to know where to build, Steve Reese Consulting is where you need to go. So let's go to BP to supply feed gas to Woodside's Louisiana LNG. This is again, Louisiana LNG is a compelling investment expected to deliver significant cash generation and create long-term shareholder value. Securing in the gas supply agreement is an important step. Woodside has a long history of successful collaboration with BP. I'm wondering, on a side note, as I've talked about this with Michael on the podcast, are we going to see BP actually move and Shell move to the United States, since the UK has lost their business minds and even their marbles, hunting for Peter Pan, losing their marbles, as you say, and they could be just absolutely devastating the fossil fuel business. Is it possible? Hold that thought as we continue on. But this Louisiana exports are a huge part of the President Trump plans. In 2024, they exported an estimated 12 billion cubic feet per day, equivalent of 86.9 million metric tons for the year, maintaining its position as the world's largest LNG. For 2025 forecast U.S. LNG exports to increase approximately 13.7 BCF per day given the new facilities. Woo! So no wonder Secretary Chris Wright is all excited, and it's all working together. The administration, and I truly believe that Elon Musk is right when he said today in the meeting, I believe this is the greatest administration that we've had, cabinet, in an administration since the beginning of this country. I kind of agree with him, and I hope that we can finish this out. The one thing I do want to say is I really enjoyed my interview with Mike Umbro and Ronald Stein. I'm looking forward to that one coming out because Secretary Wright and Secretary Burgum, we have got to get a discussion and talk about energy in California because California is a huge disaster waiting to happen. If you think that Spain, Portugal, and France had a blurb because they had an imbalance in the grid, buckle up. I think that we could have some even bigger issues with California and the way that they've been managing. So, with that, like, subscribe, share, read this to your pets, read this to your kids. Have an absolutely great day and do something epic today. Have a great one.